Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. If you like this episode today, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. I'm excited to have Rich Gund on the show today. Rich is the chairman and chief operation officer at the Gund Company. Well, Rich, I am so thrilled to have you on the Something Extra podcast today. Thank you so much for making the time to be on the show.
Yes, Lisa, thanks for having me.
Well, I know we're going to have fun. I'm so incredibly grateful, and I know you are too, for many reasons, probably for our mutual friend, Tim Sater.
Yes, Tim is a great dude. I love getting together with Tim and talking hockey and contacts. He seems to know everybody in St. Louis, and his hockey knowledge has an unbelievable amount of depth.
For sure, yes. And, you know, when you just said he knows everyone in St. Louis, I call him the connector extraordinaire.
Yes.
I mean, he is. So, you know, he had said to me, he goes, that you delivered the keynote at this year's AIM. And he's like, Lisa, you got to have Rich on the show. And I'm surprised that you and I did not know each other before. But
we had a great time at the show, but, you know, there was a kind of a scheduling problem. He scheduled Craig Berube, you know, the coach of the Blues when they won their Stanley Cup, then me, and then free drinks.
So
I
you
don't
were
know.
standing between.
I don't know anybody that heard a thing I said.
Well, he said it was great. He loved your keynote. He said you're a great storyteller. So I cannot wait for our listeners to hear more. You know, I really kind of would love to start back the story of the gun company. And really, it dates all the way back, not because of the gun company itself, but to 1938, when I read that your grandfather, Ed Gunn, right,
Yes.
married Al Busman's daughter, Charlotte.
Yes.
Right? Started walking, you know, through that, working for that company. And then I guess decided, you know, the busman business has been around for a long time. I remember when we first moved to St. Louis, you know, busman, but I think that started in the family garage in 1914, you know, a good American dream story there. But your grandfather worked there, and then decided to jump on the entrepreneur wagon and found his own company. And so tell us more about that story, and then I've got a lot of other questions for you.
Sure. So my great grandfather is Al Busman, and he and his brothers started a fuse business back when fuses really didn't exist. And this is back during the electrification of America. So you have wood frame houses and everybody wants electricity. So they just bring in bare wire throughout a wood house. And anything that happens, any sort of current surge, could be an electrical storm, and you'd have the house would burn down. It was just extremely unsafe, but that's how all new technology starts out. So my grandfather had this idea. He noticed that a little piece of zinc would melt faster than the copper. So he'd go into a house and electrically connect in a little box about the size of your hand And in that box was a little piece of zinc, and that piece of zinc would melt and break the circuit when there's an electrical spike, preventing an electrical fire. So he and his brothers started making these little boxes with this, what became known as a fuse, and started selling them door to door. And over time, they went regional and then national. And that's when Max McGraw came along, and McGraw Edison purchased Bussmann Manufacturing in 1928. My great grandfather, I don't know that he knew the Great Depression was coming, but he had unbelievable timing as far as when to sell the business. And that's how we got started in the electrical business. Of course, they continued to run Bussmann Manufacturing, and my great grandfather's son Al ended up running it well into the 60s and early 70s. And as part of all that, his brother-in-law, which would be my grandfather Ed Gund, who married Al Jr.'s sister, he started a company called the Gun Company to get into this new thing called plastics. And that was in 1951. And that's how the Gun Company got started. There was never any cross ownership, but clearly Ed worked for Bussmann, and then at the urging of the Bussmann family, started his own business to get a foot into plastics, which back then was brand new.
Yeah. That is so, what a great story. That is the American dream, right? An
Yeah,
American
right.
story, only in America.
And
I
we are
love
living
it.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was just thinking, Rich, as you were talking, what is that old saying? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Right, right, exactly.
So seeing what that did and how it would break the circuit, I mean, that's amazing. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
That your great grandfather or your grandfather did that. That's really
And
wonderful. Well, let me ask you this. So, obviously you're growing up in this family of entrepreneurs, right?
right.
Uh, Now you and Steve actually are in the business today,
Yes,
because Paul, Ed's son, right,
yes.
went
So
in came into the
right.
business,
So Ed had
and
8 kids, and my father Paul was the oldest of the 8. And when my father graduated from college in 1963, he joined my grandfather. And basically, they were essentially sales reps and also did some distribution, because back then all the manufacturing in this country was on the East Coast. So they set up a warehouse in St. Louis to distribute plastic materials, composite materials in this region of the country. And back then, when my dad joined them in 1963, they doubled the size of the company from one person to two. And and my grandfather went east of the Mississippi, and my father went west of the Mississippi.
so they divided the country in half, and one
Right.
took one half. And I'm not going to ask you which one was most successful because we don't want to make your dad or your dad upset about that.
That's right.
Well,
I think they were both did a great job because we're still here today.
yes, they did. Absolutely, which is really remarkable, right?
Right.
Rich, I
Right.
know you know the numbers, but I think, companies that start out, only 30% of them actually make it past 10 years.
Right.
And then when you talk about passing down to future generations, the number goes way down from that. So,
Right.
what a
We are
success story.
we are so lucky. We've got my son is now joined us. He started in October as an engineer. He is an electrical engineer. He went to Case Western, then spent 2 years with Deloitte in their consulting division, and he joined us in October as an applications engineer. So we now have our fourth generation.
Fourth generation.
Yeah,
That's incredible. Have you I don't know the stats on that. I didn't look up the stats, but it has to be like super low.
yeah, it's less than 5% make it to the fourth
Less than
generation.
5% make it to the fourth generation. That's incredible. Well, you guys are definitely doing something right. And I'm excited to jump into a lot of that with culture and your continuous improvement and total quality management systems and that sort of thing. But you and Steve grew up in this family. What did you work at an early age in the business?
Oh yeah. So the there was definitely a lot of encouragement to uh, earn some money, whether it was cutting grass, shoveling snow back when we had snow. And as soon as we were old enough to go to work with Dad, we did. And sometimes, you know, I can remember my first times going to work with Dad, it wasn't a choice. It was because I did something at school and, I'd be grounded. And Mom said, on Saturday, he's yours. So I would go in to work with Dad on Saturday, and he would give me things to do to sweep up the shop or do something to keep me busy. And that was kind of like, hey, stop screwing around at school.
Yeah. It's kind of a double win there because he got some free labor out of you.
Yeah.
And it's a good discipline and training for you too. So that's wonderful. Well, you went on to the University of Notre Dame and got a BA and an MBA, and then started your career at Cooper's Library, which is really amazing. And you just talked about your son starting at Deloitte. I think it's good to start at those big firms, and then you came in and joined in 1992. How did your experience, Rich, at Cooper's really inform how you led and came into the business when you joined the gun group?
Well, it was interesting. With Coopers, I really saw how organizations function at a high level and how Fortune 500 companies work because we were doing work with Anheuser-Busch, Ralston Purina, Procter and Gamble, and just seeing how these world-class companies work and use data and um, really it's a totally different level than what I had experienced in the summers working at the family business. So I
Mhm.
kind of envisioned what we could be someday, but I knew to really get there, we had to do a lot of things to raise sales and develop critical mass. It was, I knew it was going to be a long journey, but just to be able to see what's possible, I think that was a really important part of uh, my training.
Mhm. And not that the company was not, I mean, the company was on a great trajectory and good. Sometimes, though, I think you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. And seeing these P&Gs and these companies that have been around for a long time, I'm sure you were able to like you said, see how they did things and then bring some of that good knowledge into the gun company. So I think that's a wonderful thing. And I'm sure your son, with having worked at Deloitte, Rich, is probably going to do the same thing.
Well,
He's going to
I
bring
hope
some new
so.
ideas. Yeah.
It's kind of it's nice though. He has recognized as he's started with us that we do things that the other companies he's been exposed to do not do. And he said, "You guys are well ahead of the curve on culture stuff."
Hmm.
And he said, "There's a big problem with companies like Deloitte where they just can't keep their people because they don't have a very strong culture."
Yeah.
And he said, "You guys have done a great job of bringing in people that whose values align." And he said, he's yet to meet anybody at our company who he considers a bad person. And he said, in his previous work, he said, they're everywhere.
Sure.
Everybody's out for themselves. Everybody makes selfish decisions. And he said, I don't see that here.
Hmm. Ah, that's so cool. I know you guys have focused a lot on core values and your philosophy and principles that really have not changed. But I think let's talk a little bit more about gun company. I mean, you've talked a little bit about what you guys do, but you guys serve our listeners may not know everything you guys do. I mean, you guys are in lots of different industries and electric cars, the aerospace industry. I mean, you do a lot of things. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about what you guys provide, the services, and then let's move into culture.
Sure, sure. So with a name like the gun company, even though it's very charming and it's creative, it really doesn't tell anybody what we do. So what we are in the composites world. We make plastics, composite plastic. So it's some sort of substrate, like it could be paper, it could be glass, it could be a woven fabric. We combine it with a thermoset resin an epoxy, a phenolic, a melamine, you name it. And then we'll make parts with those composites. And many times we're making the sheet product, and then we got to cut it and machine it. Sometimes you can mold it, sometimes you can shape it, sometimes, uh, well, there's various different processes, but basically customers send us their part drawings and their material specifications, and then we'll quote the part based on what they send us, and we get the work based on our quote and our ability to meet their specifications. So we
Mm-hmm.
are essentially a composites company at this point, and we are very strong with the electrical industry. We're in oil and gas, medical, aerospace. We are doing some things with electric vehicles, but I'd say at this point we're doing a lot more with larger electric equipment, generators, transformers, switchgear, than we are with EVs.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have got how many manufacturing locations? 12, 13, something like that?
Not quite that many. So we've got quite a few locations in terms of manufacturing in the U.S. We've got facilities in St. Louis, Milwaukee, Northwest Indiana, in a city, small town called Cedar Lake. We're in Fergus, Ontario, which is just outside of Toronto. We got two facilities in Los Angeles that we're going to move into a single facility later this year. We're in Dallas, we're in Querétaro, Mexico, um, and we're also in China. We have two facilities in China, and then we just signed a joint venture for a facility in Delhi.
Wow. Okay. That is, yeah, that's amazing. Amazing, amazing growth. And I do want to talk to you a little bit more about that growth formula, what you believe is the precipice for that or the foundation of that. But you guys use this formula to guide your daily actions, and it's quality times service over cost times cycle time equals trust, which equals value. So you guys are huge on building the trust with the customer. And that's where you believe then you're bringing them value, right? So, let's talk a little bit about that. So, as the quality improves,
Sure.
your
So
value increases, right?
yeah, so what you're talking about is our value equation, and this is something that we picked up from uh, Rolly Borham, who used to be the CEO of Baldor Electric. Rolly died a few years ago. Great guy. Um, but basically, Rolly had this value equation where he said um, quality and customer service over cost and cycle time is the formula. And basically what that tells you, it's really a relational formula more than if you plug in numbers. So as you increase quality or customer service, value goes up. If you take costs down or cycle time down, value goes up. So I spent enough time with Rolly over the years where we talked about the importance of cycle time, and speed is the only one of those four dimensions of value that necessarily affects the other three. Every time you lower speed, you're going to lower your costs, you're going to improve quality, you're going to improve service because everybody wants it faster. And if you're going to be fast, you have to do it right the first time, which is always faster and always improves quality. And of course, your costs come down because speed through and throughput lowers your costs. So
Mm-hmm.
Rolly, we talked about this value equation enough. He said, yeah, please use it. So we've been using it, now 25, 30 years. But it was probably about 10 years ago where I realized the value equation isn't complete because there was times when we had the best quality, the best service, best price, fastest turnaround. We still didn't get the order. And what I
Mm-hmm.
realized we were missing is that trust component. The customer had some trust with other suppliers that didn't have with us. Maybe they hadn't used us before, maybe they'd used the other guy. So that trust component is kind of subjective. And it talked about the relationships and the connections we had to build in the market to overcome any fears. Because once we get somebody into our system and they get used to our quality and on time delivery and speed and service and technical expertise, we don't lose customers.
Mm-hmm.
but we had to build up that trust component so that customers felt secure in using us for that first time.
Yeah, I'm sure, Rich, you've read Covey's book, Leading at the Speed of Trust,
Yes, of
right?
course, that's required reading here.
It's required reading. Exactly. Yeah. And I think about, what you just said, and it's true. I mean, you may have all those components, but they've not experienced you before.
So
They've not used you before, right?
the speed of trust is it's a book that I literally buy by the case.
That's funny.
When you buy them by the case, they're only $7 each, and
Great
everybody,
value.
oh yeah,
Great
of
value.
course. And I hand them out like candy. Everybody
Mhm.
has to read The Speed of Trust because they formulaically break down trust, and they tell you how to build trust, and they tell you there's 13 trust building behaviors in the book. Well, we came up with a 14th. Our 14th trust building behavior is bring data.
Ah, love it.
So
We
you won't
talk
find that
about
in the
that
book.
too. We need to talk to Stephen M.R. Covey and say, you need to go ahead and add that bring data, right?
Well, I've met Steven several times. He took our story and said he was going to put it in his book, Trust and Inspire, but somehow we got edited out, and that's just fine. But so, yeah, Stephen loves our website because we not only talk about trust, but we credit him. And,
Yeah.
I'm hoping he'll write another book and include us.
I'm sure. Well, he should, because you guys are a great case study. Let's talk maybe one or two more things, and then we do need to take a quick break, Rich. But
Sure.
you guys, we already talked about this, that you have a very high standard and emphasis on quality. And in fact, continuous improvement is really important for you guys. And you have a formalized, standardized QMS system, but you guys are ISO 9001 certified, as well as many other certifications, which are not easy. But you have three guiding principles in the company. And I think this probably speaks a lot to the culture that you've built. What are those guiding principles?
Sure. So we believe strongly that we're not in business to do just one thing, and a lot of companies are. They'll tell you that we're in business to make money or meet the needs of our shareholders, or some will say, "Oh, we're in the business for our customers." Ford says quality is job one. Well, we don't think it's that simple. For us, we have to do three things really well all the time, and it starts with taking care of each other. And we believe if we take care of each other and demonstrate to our people what empathy, listening, compassion, all of those things really are, then our people can take care of customers. And that's the second piece. Because customers have to be taken care of well in order for them to come back. And if we do a great job taking care of our customers, some of them will even pay a premium for our product or service. And then that goes into number three, which is take care of the business. So profitability is absolutely essential. But a lot of companies kind of screw this up. When they make money, they put it in their pockets, they pay out stock bonuses to executives, what have you. We dump that back into take care of each other. So it's
Mm-hmm.
for us, it's a continuous improvement loop that starts with taking care of each other and leads to taking care of the customer, and then take care of the business, and then it continues back in to taking care of each other. And it's a delicate balancing act. You can't overemphasize one or
One.
underemphasize the other. It's kind of like a three-legged stool. If you overemphasize any one, you're going to fall off your stool. Same thing if you underemphasize any one leg. So that's really how we run our business. And uh, all of our strategic planning is around those three things. We've got our key measures. We got 5 key measures, each align with one of those three principles. And then all of our action plans align directly with how do we improve key measures. So we've got great alignment from principle to metrics to action plan. And then every facility, every plant, every market leader, every function is aligned the exact same way. So in terms of alignment and strategic deployment, uh, top to bottom, we've got a really strong system.
Mhm. I'm glad you said that because I'm thinking to myself, you've got a system. You've
Oh
got a
yeah,
system, and alignment is one of the things that we talk about a lot, right? You getting all the departments, getting all the function areas, getting all the locations aligned with one another. But without the system, Rich, it's almost impossible to do.
it's
So you
it's
guys have
really
put
difficult.
yes, yes,
But you can
and
go to any one of our facilities and you can look at their strategic deployment board, and it looks just like every other facility. The only thing that might change, all the key measures are the same, all the goals are the same, but the action plans as they apply to a particular facility or function may vary. Because
yeah,
what one facility may not need a 10% improvement in on-time delivery. So if you need that, that's your action plan.
yeah. That's so good. We could do a whole podcast just on that, and
You
I know that
certainly
it would be
could.
helpful.
You certainly
We
could.
do. We need to take a quick break though, and we'll be right back with Rich Gunn on the Something Extra podcast.
Hey there. In a challenging business climate like this, savvy leaders look to technology to find an edge. This can mean the difference between staying ahead of the curve or playing catch up. It's time to collaborate with the highly skilled experts at Technology Partners. Our team of technologists draws upon decades of experience for your project, with each bringing a passion for solving problems and a track record of success. How can we help you overcome your biggest technology challenges? Visit technologypartners.net to book a free consultation with one of our leaders.
Okay.
So, welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with Rich Gunn. So, Rich, I absolutely loved everything that you just talked about there. Easier said than done. I mean, it's not easy to do, but you guys certainly have done that, and you've focused a lot on this culture of innovation. And I was curious as to, well, how have you done that, and how do you get everybody in alignment? But I think you just answered that question. Do you do any benchmarking, Rich, against other organizations like yours? Do you do, because that's another component possibly that you could measure yourself on?
Absolutely. So I don't know that we've come up with a whole lot of original stuff ourselves, but we have been relentless benchmarkers. And I think back in our history, there's a company in town called Electric, and the Deloge family was unbelievably generous with us and helping us with our continuous improvement program. This would be around 2014, 2015. Around that same time, maybe it was a little bit later, we met Bob Chapman at Barry Waymiller, and they've been just absolutely wonderful as far as our take care of each other initiatives and really shown
Mhm.
us what taking care of each other really looks like. So yeah, you name it, we've tried to benchmark it. Years ago, I was on the board of examiners for Missouri Quality Award, and I did that for 5 or 6 years, and that gave me access to a whole bunch of great Missouri companies that I was able to benchmark and uh, learn from them that allowed us to become ISO certified. At that time, we became ISO certified in '96. At that time, we were the smallest company in Missouri to attain ISO certification. And most of the systems I put in back then were because of what I learned at the Missouri Quality Award.
Yeah.
So
Well,
constant benchmarking.
yeah, and that's a good leadership lesson right there too, right? Rich, one of the ways that you can grow your organization and get better, right, is to get involved in boards like what you just did and the things that you can learn there. Yeah, because I started my career at McDonnell Douglas. Greg and I both did.
Sure.
And I remember the Malcolm Baldrige.
Oh yeah, I was
And
on a examination team that gave it to God, who was it? It was David Sprong was the leader. It was the spare parts division for the missile defense unit.
for the missile defense, yeah. Yeah. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
they were
just
they
a
were
lot of it.
unbelievable company.
Unbelievable. We always say we're just so amazing, like grateful for our time at McDonald's. And it's kind of like what you had mentioned about Cooper's, right? You got to see the P&Gs, you got to see these larger companies and these iconic brands and how they did things. And that's really what we felt like. It's like we saw what good looked like.
Right.
And sometimes you don't know what good looks like, but we got to experience what good look like.
And
Um,
we're trying to pay it back now, and well, we have been for some time. Anybody who wants to benchmark us, we invite them in. We'll spend a day with them, showing them and their people how we do things, our continuous improvement system, how we take care of each other. We'll show them everything we possibly can. Uh,
yeah.
and my brother and I also serve on boards for private and also nonprofit companies, with just simply to help them grow, because we've gotten so much from the St. Louis business community. We've got to give back. So if there's
Mhm.
people in your listener group that want to benchmark us, more than happy to open up our doors and we can learn from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can get better together for
Right.
sure.
Absolutely.
That's so good. That's so good. I had another thought and it just left me, but maybe it'll come back. I think we've already talked about this age thing, Rich, and that's one of the things that's in the, what'd you call it, in the bag?
Yeah, it's in the bag.
Bag of yes. Listeners, I'll give you a little preview. So we were just talking about aging before we hopped on the podcast today, and Rich, you said, somebody said, oh, there's a bag, this invisible bag, and oh, I'm having trouble with my eyes. Oh, it's in the bag. This
Yeah.
is one of
Well,
the things that
when
you
you
get.
turn 50, we all get this bag of health issues. And
Right.
anytime something goes wrong, it's, oh, that's in the bag.
It's in the bag. It's in the bag. But hey, we also talked about we're doing what we can, right?
That's right.
We're trying to do our part to stay really healthy. That is so funny. Well, let me ask you this. So the company has grown significantly, and I think I probably know the answer to this. Part of the answer to this is what strategies have been most effective in driving growth. And I think it's truly one of them is you guys focusing on this value equation and building the trust, and then the quality product, the customer service, all of those things are probably pieces of that. But is there anything else?
So that's a great question. So when I started, coming from Cooper's, we did a lot of work with cycle time compression. And back then we were doing a project with Anheuser-Busch, and they had this proliferation of brands with like Bud Ice and Bud Dry, and Ralston Purina was coming out with all these different cereals around Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all of these new products kept coming in, and how fast you could get them to market had a big impact on how much market share you could grab at the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I joined the gun company, I was fortunate. We had really a strong quality reputation, but speed wasn't really our forte. So we kind of redesigned things and we became speed focused, and we started going after the repair market in the electrical industry. So, when the power goes out, people kind of lose their minds. And when the power goes out, it isn't because the copper failed, it's because the
Mm-hmm.
plastic failed, right? So sometimes an entire subdivision is in the black. It's got blackout conditions because they need our little piece of plastics. So
Mm-hmm.
we got really good at responding to emergencies, whether that was power generation or distribution. Didn't matter. If a customer called, we were going to double the price and get it to them. And that worked great because people just needed it fast. They didn't care what you charged them. I can't tell you how many times customers would call up and say, this is what I need. Get it to me as fast as you can. I don't care what you charge me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the customers we like.
Right. Right.
so so the speed became a big part of how we went to market and led to us growing. When I started, we were about 3 million in sales, and uh, we started having growth years of 30 and 40%. That was all because we were driving speed. And another industry that we got into because we could respond was steel manufacturing. And when an electric arc furnace goes down, it's because the insulation components failed. And it's really tough stuff to get. It's hard to machine. So we figured that out and could respond next day. And because every day a steel mill is down, it's millions of dollars they're losing
Millions
in
of
production.
dollars. Right.
So if somebody wants to pay us $5,000 for a $2,000 part, it's no big deal. They're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, in the 90s, that was a big part of our growth. And once we had enough critical mass and profitability, we started doing acquisitions, and we became very strategic in where we uh, did our acquisitions geographically, and we bought up competitors, which was helpful in terms of shrinking the number of competitors we had. But it also allowed
Right.
us to go to a big customer like ABB or Siemens or GE and say, hey, everywhere you got a plant, we got a plant within 500 miles. So we can now do a national or regional contract, which none of our competitors could do. So it allowed us to talk at a higher level strategically with our key customers and build those relationships. And what we're now is considered an extension of those big customers. So we're so integrated in with our key customers that basically they have a need that goes into their bill of materials electronically. It feeds right into our system and ends up at an order at one of our machines to start producing all within minutes. So we can respond to a customer within 48 hours and really
Huge.
a minimum of manual intervention.
That
So
is huge.
speed
That's
is, even to this day, is really important for us.
is really important, but it wasn't, right? At one point, but you saw that opportunity, you saw that need in the market that wow, I mean, really being able to respond quickly to these industries that needed your service
Right.
was going to be
And
paramount
and
to
that's
you
why
guys'
we're in foreign
success.
countries as well, because
Mhm.
our large multinational customers had facility in Mexico or in Canada or in China, and they wanted a reliable supplier nearby. And so a lot of companies will go to Mexico for the low cost labor and then ship stuff back to the US. For the most part, I would say 85 to 90% of our sales out of our Mexico facility is for Mexico.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's really is about being close to the customer, and not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, strategically.
I love that. Rich, you said, that we're really an extension of those customers. That is one of I will never forget it. That's one of the highest compliments that we had ever been paid by one of our large customers. When I was at lunch one day with one of the executives, and she's like, "We just look at you guys. Are an extension of us." And I'm like, "What? Just a
Right.
fabulous testimonial," and appreciate that so much. But let me ask you this: what about what's the customer feedback loop? Do you guys have a customer feedback loop, and how has that really, because here's what we always say, if you want to know where need to go as an organization, listen to your customer. and
Absolutely.
and I can't even tell you how many times that a customer has come to us and said, can you do XYZ? I mean, we just won a contract with a customer yesterday that said, can you do XYZ? And I will tell you, at the time that this conversation started, we could not do XYZ. But guess what? Now we can,
That's right. That's right.
because we
Congratulations.
worked hard to put the pieces in place, right, to make that happen. So for you guys, what does that customer uh, feedback loop look like, and how has it informed? Have you, or maybe you even have an anecdotal story about that?
So we've got lots of customer touch points, and we're not satisfied if our salespeople are just talking to a buyer. We want to be the technical expert for our customers. Years ago, especially in the electrical industry, there was an electrical engineer on staff that helped design equipment and specialize in the insulation components. Over time, those people have been eliminated, and so now, for the most part, people depend on us to be the technical experts. We've got a full array of testing capabilities at multiple plants. Anybody wants to do a comparison of different materials, we can do that. We can provide them all the technical information they need so that they can make the decision. We don't care what material a customer wants to use.
Hmm.
We let them make the choice, but we can give them the data so that they can make the choice.
Make an
And
informed choice, right? An informed decision.
so we've got relationships with the technical people. We've obviously got relationships with the buyers, but also at the strategic level, we will meet with the executives at key customers, so that we're in tune with what they're doing from a growth standpoint. Our facility in Dallas is there because a key customer wanted us to have a facility in Dallas. Our customer in Mexico is there because a key customer said, please come to Mexico. Same with Canada. So we're talking at multiple different levels for key customers and getting their feedback and making sure that we are hand in glove with them as far as meeting their needs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good. I mean, that's what truly their challenges need to become our challenges.
That's
And we
right.
need to care about them as much as they do, right? But you can't
Well,
do that unless you're having the conversation.
and we also believe that it's important to pick your customers. We want to
Mm,
create the absolute strongest supply chain to the end customer. So if we can pick the best customers in any industry segment, we're going to build that strong supply chain. And there's so many customers out there that just want to send you a list of parts to quote, and then they can do the spreadsheet analysis and the low price wins. Well, that doesn't really help us build a strong supply chain. We don't. We can be the lowest price supplier. We've got the ability and the size to do that, but we need mind share. If we're going to
mhm,
really build an efficient supply chain with our key customers, we need mind share. And if somebody's going to switch suppliers based on a nickel, um, we're never going to get that mind share.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's where we're
that's
always
good.
looking for who's the best in their industry segment and how do we partner with them to build that strong supply chain.
That's really wise too. You do the work up front to make sure you understand who the customer is, the right target, customer base. So that's really good leadership advice too. Well, oh goodness, I've got so much more here. But what advice, Rich, do you give to young people who maybe aspire to be in a leadership position in the C-suite like you are, you're the COO, or own their own thing? I mean, what advice? I'm sure you've got your own kids, so I'm sure you've given them some advice. But
More
what do
than
you
they
tell
wanted.
young people? I'm sure, yeah, just like mine. What do you tell young people about that? How to be successful in business?
So this is going to sound odd, but you know, to my kids and to people their age, all my kids are in their 20s. And from my perspective, it's a little different. I got married at age 24. My wife was 23. My daughters, who are 28 and 29, say that my wife was a child bride. It just, you know,
At 23.
at 23. But what I tell them is, while we were raising them, we said, get good grades, participate in after school activities, get a job, do service work, all of these things. We never told them the most important thing, and that's to find a life partner. Um,
Mm,
the most important decision I ever made was uh, with my wife, Kathleen. We decided to get married, start a family. And my kids say, well, it's not like back in the 50s when you guys got married. Things have changed. And I say, it doesn't matter if you're married. You got to find a life partner. It doesn't even
mhm,
have to be somebody it's romantic with. Maybe you adopt somebody, but you need somebody to share your life with, somebody that can be supportive of you and you can support them, be a good partner to them. There is
mhm,
so much richness in life that comes from having a life partner that you are absolutely on the same page with on everything and explore the world together. There's just so much joy in that. Um, and if you've got that, then you can go and do whatever you want professionally. But if you
mhm,
put the professional before getting that life partner, your life is going to seem empty and your life is going to feel like it's missing something. And you're
good
not going to
advice.
find it by working more because ultimately you will become successful. You will eventually have enough money, but you'll miss out on just one of the great joys in life, and that's sharing your life with somebody.
With someone. Oh, that is such good advice. Well,
Tell my
you
kids, will you?
well, I'll talk to your kid, you talk to mine,
Fair
okay?
enough.
Because, sometimes they just don't think we know a lot, right? I shouldn't say that. Our kids are great about that, but there have been times, okay,
Yes,
let's
that's
just say
right.
there have been seasons where that's not the case. So you talked about Kathleen. I'm so glad that you brought her up because I know you guys are actively involved in the community. In fact, you guys give to a variety of nonprofit initiatives. What's the importance of giving back, Rich?
Oh my. We've been just blessed in so many different ways, so much more than we deserve. Um, and it's a lot of times giving back is easy. If you can ease somebody's suffering just even a little bit, I feel like you got to do it. Um, and it could be as easy as stopping a runaway shopping cart. You know, don't just watch it hit somebody else's car. You know, step up. We
Right.
all are responsible, and you know, we're responsible for the communities we create, and we're responsible for the families that we have and the friends that we have. And responsible is just able to respond, right?
Mm.
We can all respond, and it's a choice, and that choice has got to be one with joy and care and empathy. It, and you can do it in isolation or you can do it with a plan. And one of the great things with Kathleen is we've always been able to talk through what are the priorities in our life and how we can give back and how that fits with everything else that we got going on. And we do it together. And,
Mhm.
you know, everything I do with Kathleen is just so much better than when I do it by myself. So
Oh,
I'm blessed beyond reason, beyond what the good Lord should have ever possibly given me. And she's a big part of it.
yeah. I could not agree more. I could not agree more. And you talked about this thing of doing life with somebody, sharing that life with somebody. It is so much fun when because Greg and I've always said, Greg said early on for us, and we didn't talk about this, but we were childhood sweethearts and high school sweethearts and went to college and then moved to St. Louis from Kentucky. But he said early on, he said, Lisa, he said, what would be so cool is if we could one day build a business and we could do well as the business so we can do more good in the world. He goes, I'm
Absolutely.
never impressed by people who do good for themselves. I mean, you
Absolutely.
have to take care of your family, but if you're only doing good for yourself, that's just really
Eventually it's going to get empty, right?
it's going to get empty, right?
Right.
But it's what you can do in the world and improving somebody else's life, right? That really matters. So, oh my goodness, Rich, this has been so much fun, but I have to ask you, this is called something extra.
Yes.
What do you believe is the something extra every leader needs?
So for us, that's really easy question. And I know you've probably answered or asked this question 1,000 times. And I hope my answer is adequate, but it's pretty simple. It's care.
Mm,
Uh, the best leaders care, and they care about their people in a way that goes above and beyond what's reasonable sometimes. They are able to demonstrate empathy. They listen. They're compassionate. It doesn't mean they don't hold people accountable because we believe accountability is part of care. Um, but our best leaders demonstrate care, not just for their people, but for their customers and for their business. And care is often demonstrated through self-sacrifice. So it's hard to find an occasion where you can see somebody's making a sacrifice and there's no care there,
mhm,
right? Care and self-sacrifice are always linked. And in the business world, nobody wants to talk about love. We're comfortable talking about care, but nobody wants to talk about love. But love is really care, right? It's the way
yes.
we put love into action is the care we provide. Our best leaders know how to care. Our best leaders can teach others how to care. Because let's face it, care is not universal. And based on what somebody's background is, they may not know or be comfortable demonstrating care. And what we've found in our organization is uh, we sometimes have to teach how to care. And
Mhm,
when you get people in a room and you start talking about some of the commonalities between uh, different backgrounds and how do we each demonstrate care, everybody all of a sudden all of our defenses come down. We're able to share. We're able to recognize each other for the great humans we are. And we go forth, and now we feel much more comfortable about demonstrating that care out in the world. And we really believe that business, which has kind of gotten a bad name, I think, um, there's a lot of people that are, the multi-billionaires buying yachts and, doing things that other people would go to jail for, but they somehow skirt. Businesses can be a force for good.
Mm-hmm.
We can take people every day who come into our doors, treat them great, and send them back home better than the way they came in. And instead of going home and uh, yelling at your spouse and being upset with the dog, you can go home and you can give everybody a hug. And you can be a ripple of good in the community based on how we treat people every day at work. We can be a force for good. And um, there's, I talk about Barry Waymiller and Barry Waymiller. There
Yes,
people
they're
definitely
huge on
feel this
that.
way.
Mm-hmm.
The more companies we can get to think about how do we be a force for good, um, that is just to me the highest achievement we could ever have as an organization is people come to us and say, okay, how do you guys do it? How do you treat people so well that they go home better than when they came in the morning? And we've got a lot of things that we do that help us do that. And I can't say we're 100% successful all the time,
Sure.
but people know they are cared for when they come into
Mhm.
work.
It's an intention. It's an
Absolutely.
intention, Rich. I mean, you guys focus on it. And yeah, I want to do another podcast about that. Okay. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just had here our it's a great day every year. We have an employee stock ownership program, and once a year the valuation gets done and the distributions happen, and everybody gets their updated stock certificate. And we just had that. So now we've got, what do we have? $50 million in the ESOP,
awesome.
and we've got about 500 people in the ESOP. So the average balance is right around $100,000. And a good chunk of those people went to high school, but they certainly didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can stay with us, then that's what we always tell people. If you stay with us, you will be able to retire. One, you'll be able to retire fairly wealthy, and you'll be able to have a very healthy life, right? Because,
That's
then
a
there was a
big way
time.
that you're carrying.
Well,
Rich.
there was a time when back in the early '90s when we had people leave us, and you know they didn't have any retirement savings. We weren't big enough to even have a 401k, and they would try to live on Social Security, and that really didn't work out. And it's not a healthy way to live when you can't afford to buy medications, eat right, and etc. So they end up having a very short retirement until their death. Well, now we've got people that can retire early and they can
Mm-hmm.
retire healthy and they can travel and they can do things that they never thought they could. And we have people that come back to see us after they've retired and they give us hugs and they say, I never thought I'd be able to retire. My parents never retired. We're a family that works till we die, but not me. I retired at age 60. So that's really gratifying when we can do that. And our ESOP is one of the ways that we demonstrate that care because nobody's ever paid a penny for the stock that is in their ESOP. That is something
Wow.
that the family gifted to everybody to be part of our family. We believe that you have to share the risk and the reward. So that's how we set it up is through our ESOP. And
I
it
love it.
it has been so gratifying to see people have lives that they couldn't have had without that ESOP.
Yeah. I seriously want to continue that conversation. That is amazing. Well, Rich, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. I cannot wait for our listeners to hear your story and to learn from you. It's just, wow, we could just keep talking and talking and talking.
That's right.
So,
Like I said, give them my number. Let people know.
okay,
I'd be more than happy to take them through, and I'd love to learn from them as well.
that sounds great. All right. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.